All right, debate in a moment or two's time. Looking forward to it. But, of course, the story of the day is the decision of the Prime Minister today that Australia will formally recognise Palestine when there is a vote on it, and it's happening in the UN in September. Why is anyone surprised? I told you that this would happen probably about 18 months ago, in all seriousness, that this is inevitably where they were going to go. Why? Because he's always wanted to go there. Regardless of whether it's the right or the wrong thing to do, this is what he's always wanted to do. He now is, of course, the Prime Minister who's got the position to do it. He's got the circumstances to do it, so he's going to do it. And while I know there are many people concerned about it, I do want to show you just one comment from a person who disagrees with the decision that has been made about why perhaps we should just see this for the symbolism that it is rather than anything more serious than that. Dave Sharma, the former ambassador to Israel. This is what he had to say about an important yet still empty gesture that's been made by the Prime Minister.
It's ultimately a meaningless gesture which flies in the face of past Australian diplomatic practice.
And as always, people want more. Channel 9 newspapers were quick to the advocates to work out what do they say. It's not about recognition, it's about sanctioning of Israel. That's what they really want, and that's where perhaps our boat will really get. We'll all find out together. Let us join us on so many other subjects right now than the wonderful M.Canavan, of course, Senator for Queensland, joining us now from the beautiful halfway-ish bit of North Queensland right now, and none other than the wonderful Nicholas Rees, who's in front of a bit of Melbourne artwork behind there. And you see the subtlety, that there's the red team, there's the blue team, and there he is just perfectly in the middle. Oh, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing there. But let's talk about our old mate Blackout Bowen, because that bloke loves to tell a lie. Here was one that he threw around on social media. Have a look at this rubbish.
At the last election, the Liberals and Nationals told Australia that nuclear was the way to deal with climate change. Their plan having been so comprehensively rejected by the Australian people, now they're walking away from climate action altogether. Now, to justify this, they're telling us that Australia is doing more than the rest of the world. So let's quickly go through a few facts. Last year, 92.5% of all new electricity in the world was renewable. So to say the rest of the world isn't doing anything is a lie. 2, right now, 84% of the world's GDP is covered by net zero commitments. And 3rd, just recently, for example, renewables overtook coal as the largest source of electricity for India.
And Matt, he goes on to tell a whopper that it's renewables that are pushing the lights on in India, but you were quick online to go, hang on, mate, that's crap.
It is total BS, Paul. Just a couple of weeks ago, unfortunately Chris obviously didn't look at this, but a couple of weeks ago the annual Gospel on Energy Statistics came out, the so-called Statistical Review of World Energy, and it had data up to the end of 2024 which showed that India used coal for 75% of its electricity. And that figure's barely budged in decades. India's been reliant on coal for a long time. And the worst thing about this whopper is, look, we all make mistakes. We all get a bit of bad advice from time to time, and you repeat it, and you think, oh, geez, I've done something wrong there. That happens. But anybody who takes any bit more than a serious interest in the energy market, in the energy system of the world, as you'd hope the Energy Minister would do, would know that India is massively reliant on coal. It's one of the main facts of energy economics, global energy economics today. It's a fact that's very important for our own country, because guess what our biggest export to India is? It's coal. It's about 70% of our exports to India are coal. And Chris Bowen doesn't seem to understand that. When he was given that script straight away, she was like, no, that doesn't sound right. But he repeated it anyway. Absolutely absurd. And he was doing it in a piece trying to accuse other people of misleading. And himself has told this absolute whopper to the Australian public, and I haven't seen any correction yet. It is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, of course, but because we're in many ways dealing with faith as much as anything else, it doesn't matter what the evidence is that we end up here with. But, Nicholas, here's the problem, right? The actual fine print of what he had to say in the little video there was new electricity. New. Okay, so what does he say? From stuff that was commenced in 2024, 23, but of course the whole suggestion there that, oh, no, look, that's where the majority of the stuff's coming from. Reality is, in a place like India, the difference between poverty and modernity is electricity that comes from coal 75% of the time.
Well, look, obviously energy supply is a critical part of embracing modernity and lifting up human standards of living. But I do want to just return to Chris Bowen's video there, and Matt's made a point about the facts and figures he trotted out in relation to India. And look, maybe India has been a bit slow on the renewables take-up, but gee whiz, there's some other pretty powerful figures in that presentation, like 92.5%
I can go through,
of the new energy generation added in the world last year was renewables. 84% of the world's GDP is now covered by a zero carbon agreement, and UK has closed the last of its coal-fired power plants. Like, they're all pretty powerful figures.
And I can go through all of those too.
What about the kicker? You know, the LNP is full of it on carbon and cutting emissions because they're full of climate change deniers. I mean, what's your response to that accusation, Matt?
Yeah, so on those figures, again, what Chris is using for the 92% is what's called capacity. So there's a figure that if solar and wind ran all the time, this is what they are capable of doing. So he's using those figures, which are completely distortionary, because, of course, solar and wind cannot run all of the time. And again, in the video, he's trying to accuse other people of misleading. He is misleading people by using those figures without explaining what they mean. Last year, yes, there was a lot of solar and wind produced, but there was also coal went up by 267 terawatt hours. Solar went up by 973. So it was a good year for solar. Year before that, it was the other way around. But it wasn't 92%. It was nowhere near 92% of extra electricity coming from solar or wind last year. He uses those ridiculous figures. On the UK, they've converted their coal-fired power stations, some of them, to wood chips. They import wood chips from felled forests in North America, put them in a boiler, and say that it's renewable because the trees regrow. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. And it shows the scam that all of this is. It's a total and utter scam, all this stuff, where people are making a lot of money and nothing is really changing for the environment.
Now, Andrew Hastie, who over the weekend made it rather obvious, and look, to be fair, I like the honesty of anyone who says, yeah, of course, I had the chance, why wouldn't I want to be the leader, right? But he's also doing it at a time when he is specifically going into the parliament, he ain't hiding anywhere else, wanting to fight the idea of the previous commitments when it comes to net zero. Here's part of what he had to say.
Of course, the climate change has been occurring throughout history. The question is, how much does Australia have a role in changing the climate when we produce 1.1% of the world's emissions?
OK, now, Matt, I know what the advocacy is here, but Nicholas, I want to get the brief version here because there are other things to get to. Do you believe that is there any part of you that politically is concerned that if you are presented on a straight-up fight of net zero versus not net zero, that the result dramatically changes to where it has been a couple of elections ago, which was hell no from Australia?
No, I mean, I just think this is the latest example of the brain-dead morons on the hard right of the Liberal and National parties wanting to drive their vote to even lower depths. I mean, not satisfied with the lowest vote on record, they now want to go even lower. You know, not satisfied with alienating women voters, not satisfied with alienating Asian and Chinese voters. They now want to alienate what they're calling the weakling Liberals, which the rest of Australia would go, oh, they're the moderate centrist Liberals. So they're just trying to alienate yet another constituency and make themselves completely irrelevant in Australian politics, which is not great for democracy, actually.
All right, Matt, that's a big swing coming from Melbourne. Go for it.
Well, I'm not going to resort to personal invective, but the facts are most people want a government that is focused on lowering their cost of living, helping their lives be easier, helping their children get into their own home. And that's what we should be focused on. Whenever we're tied to this radical net zero agenda that's impossible to achieve, we make all of those things harder. We clearly now, it's clear that by pursuing net zero, we are pushing up electricity prices. They've gone up 30% since we signed up to it. The government's even given up on saying that they're going to lower your electricity prices under their net zero policy. So if we make the contest about a choice that's about pursuing a global agenda that does nothing for the planet because other countries aren't acting, or a political party that's focused on your life, focused on our country, focused on what we can do practically to help the environment, but also help you pay your bills, I think it's a very, very potent platform. And every time we presented that choice in those economic terms, we have won. We have won those elections. And I hope we do return to that contest for the benefit of the Australian people, and I think we'll do pretty well out of it politically as well.
All right, well, the postmodern idea around everything is that everything that you have learnt you need to unlearn because all of it has some connection to some sort of white supremacy. An example of that is how many seasons are there? Well, discussion in the past few days, endorsed by my dear friend, the Lord Mayor of Melbourne, Nicholas Rees here, is that we should move to the Indigenous way of counting things, which is not 4 seasons in 1 year or 1 day in Melbourne, but 6. Nicholas, is Melbourne signing up to 6 seasons in 1 day?
Well, my good friend Paul Murray, ideally hoped you wouldn't try and turn this into the latest chapter of the culture wars, but there you go. You've just hopped straight into it. Look, the idea of embracing Indigenous seasons came out of a Melbourne 2050 summit that we held at Melbourne Town Hall. About 1,000 people who are good and great of our city to talk about what sort of city do we want to be in.
Did you get 2050? The butcher's
There's lots
like
of ideas that came out of it. One of the ideas was, having a close look at Indigenous seasons. And the idea was, maybe the idea of transposing 4 seasons, which may work in Northern Europe, to the other side of the world may not best describe the season shifts that we experience in southeastern Australia. And maybe looking to First Nations knowledge, which has been building over tens of thousands of years, might actually offer some insights into the strange weather patterns of Melbourne and the idea of 6 seasons with a wet summer and a dry summer and a wet winter and a dry winter might actually better align with climatic conditions in this part of the world. So that was the idea.
So for the farmers of Fitzroy...
it's worth of a conversation.
So for the farmers of Fitzroy, they may need to get a new map here, all right?
Well, if you went to Singapore, Paul, if you went to Singapore and sort of said, let's adopt the 4 seasons from Britain in Singapore, you'd say they're mad. When you say, well, you've got a monsoonal season and a dry season, you can't just transpose the weather patterns and seasons from another part of the world here. And
but there's 2 seasons in the Northern Territory. There's 2. Wet or dry. There's 6 in what we're supposed to now not just have different time zones, but different weather zones?
No. So that's exactly it. They're saying instead of just having the 4 seasons of the year from Northern Europe, maybe the 6 seasons of the First Nations calendar is something that might better align, more closely align with the way that weather seasons change over the course of 12 months in Melbourne. That's the idea.
It's not a culture war, it's a categorisation conversation. That's all.
I agree.
Just a categorisation conversation, and I'm not sure that that this is what the soil we need to till over. But Matt, your thoughts here on 6 seasons or how many would you need
just quickly, I've been enjoying... I don't know, but every time I've been in inner city Melbourne, I think there's only 2 seasons. It's either the cool mode on the air conditioning remote or the hot mode, the heat mode, the warm mode. And they both end up with degrees of about 21 degrees. I mean, you're in inner city Melbourne. Does the climate really impact you that much? You just got to make sure you take your jacket some days. I mean, look, it goes back to this issue about, it does go back to the fact that we will do well as a political movement if we just go back to basics and focus on people, because obviously there's no one I've ever met that's worried about the season categorisation. This country, let's focus on the real issues. We've got major issues in the country. Our government seems distracted by trying to solve Middle East peace and change the temperature of the globe. I'd much prefer a government that focused just on Australians and do things they can practically achieve.
All right, well, get ready for the next election. It's going to be 3 flag 6 seasons versus 1 flag 4 seasons. That's the battle between now and 2028. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Senator. We'll see you all again very, very soon. I love you, boys. Thank you very much. All right, so old mate, the snake charmer and the Prime Minister are getting everyone together for their economic summit the next couple of weeks. But what's really going on? We're all adults here, so let's have a serious adult conversation about what is truly going on so you are able to pass yourself off as knowing more than I do on this matter. And the way we get there is by talking to the wonderful Phil Curry from the Financial Review. He's seen it all. He exposes it all next here on Paul Murray Live on a Monday. Thanks for watching.